I'm Dr. Connie. I'm your host of Mind Your Health podcast. I share my unique perspective both as a practitioner and a patient battling autoimmune condition for over 25 years because I had to figure things out on my own, and my education and my practical approach as a patient allows me to truly integrate it so that you can be whole and the burden of sick care is no longer your own burden to carry. And this is what we help you with in this podcast. Hey everyone, this is your Mind Your Health podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Connie. And today, this is a topic very close to my heart, which is all about integrating Eastern philosophies with the Western medicine philosophy to integrate it utilizing hormones and chakra. And at the end of the day, functional yoga medicine is all about balancing your hormones, the endocrinological system with the chakras. So before I get into the nitty-gritty scientific of and anatomy of what your hormones are, I want to just say that there is a force of energy within. And if you can just sit there and place your right hand over your heart, you know that you're not telling your heart to beat, but it's beating for you. And that's the energy that I want you to think about. The state of being by which you live your life, whether you are frazzled, overwhelmed, or fearful, or in so much guilt, like negative energy, will influence your state of being to pull your vibration to a lower level, which is conducive to us getting sick. On the flip side, your energy, your heart, then emanates a different frequency when you're full of joy, gratitude, and you're deeply meditated, and you really are in alignment and all your chakras are balanced, you become a different state of being. Not only that, my physiology and who I am and how I show up and all my labs today look very different 10 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday. It's gonna look different tomorrow. And so I just want to say that that's the flaw, I believe, in the Western medicine for as long as I've been chasing the labs, because I'm a very scientifically minded person. And I've chased the labs and the science and the medications, or really mathematics, for over 25 years. And I realized that there's something to be said about the inherent nature of the human body. And what's more important is your state of being. And that state of being is influenced by your energy. Energy then is your chakra system. And if you look at my logo, Functional Yoga Medicine, there is a serpent going up. There's a medical sign. And that signifies the 7 energy centers, the chakra system. Ancient philosophies, ancient wisdom knew this inherently, and I believe sort of blending and integrating the Eastern philosophies, the ancient wisdom with the modern science really allows us to open then another chapter to understanding ourselves in a whole different way. What I'm interested in and what I'm so passionate about is to bring you the ability to regulate your own, not only your nervous system, but your hormones as well. And when you do that, your immune system issues, any of the symptoms that you carry, all the things that you're struggling with that sometimes isn't captured by the labs alone, can just make sense. And all of a sudden, if you balance one, it'll balance all the others. And to have the power to do that from within is what I've experienced in my own healing, and that's what I'm sharing through my functional yoga medicine and here on Mind Your Health. So with that being said, let's describe what hormones are. We talk a lot about the hormones, and many of you walk around with a lot of symptoms of hormone dysregulations. In fact, there's so many patients that come to me and say, I hit kind of the 40s and my body just doesn't feel the same. I gave birth and my body's never the same, or this happened and that happened. And usually it's the phases of their lives, right? So going back to that, I want to just say that hormones are messengers or chemical messengers in the body that are heavily influenced by energy. Energy is your state of being. And I always link your stress to the root energy at the root chakra called the cortisol, because your root chakra is then connected to your adrenal gland. So when you're stressed to the max and your cortisol surges, not only does it affect the insulin levels at the solar plexus, but it also influences the thymus gland, affecting all your immune modulating chemicals at the heart chakra, as well as the thyroid. But more importantly, the pituitary gland, which is the master producing hormone, which is the stimulating hormone. It's the orchestration. It gives a direct feedback loop to the different organs of our body, including the insulin, our ovaries or testes, and the adrenal glands, to make more or make less based on the need of who? You, your state of being. So it's really important for you to understand your relevance and how much stress you exactly carry in your life. Okay, so hormone imbalance and dysfunction. So I am going to go by each, I guess, endocrinological glands that are associated with each chakra and the symptoms, so that you can appreciate just how much of these symptoms actually do overlap. So having said that, I want you to know the symptoms. I want you to pay close attention to it and think to yourself why that is, right? Why everything so overlaps. Because here's the thing, you have symptoms, you go to the doctors, and what do? Doctors will test the specific symptoms or specific tests based on your symptoms. When your symptoms are overlapping with so many of the different hormones, and chances are the doctor may not check all of them, they check the most common one, being TSH for thyroid. They may check your sex hormones, but usually they find that it's irrelevant. And unless you're seeing a functional medical doctor, you're not getting the cortisol checked either. But here's why that's all even irrelevant. Even in my opinion, even in the realm of functional medicine, I used to test everything. That's what we're trained to do. And they're expensive tests. And I would do them gladly for my patients if it was productive. But here's what I learned, exactly what I began this podcast episode with, is that every minute, every state of being that the patient is in, your state of being, influence those numbers, those values, those labs. So when the doctors check, because based on your symptoms, they suspect thyroid and they check the thyroid, guess what happens? The solution is to give you a thyroid, exogenous form of it, in the way of what's called synthroid. When you are given synthroid, and I've had patients given that postpartum and been on it for over 30 years, and what that does is it gives the negative feedback loop to your pituitary, which is your, like a peanut-sized orchestrating gland of all glands, tells the thyroid, hey, we're getting a different version of the thyroid. So thyroid, your thyroid, it's essentially telling it to shut down, because rather than relying on it and healing all the other aspects of it so that the thyroid can be back in balance again, doctors that give you synthroid, your thyroid stops working. And eventually, it affects your thymus gland, which is the immune system modulator, affecting the thyroid. And all of a sudden, it's not uncommon for patients to develop Hashimoto's. But it's all related. And so that's what we're going to kind of dive deeper into today. So I believe that's why the medical, Western medicine is... it's not an effective strategy anymore. You have to think deeper. But you as a consumer need to know this so you can better advocate for yourself. And should you go to the doctors, and I'm not like boo-hooing them, but I just want you to know there's a certain level of responsibility that you have to bring to the table too, knowing that you're in charge of your state of being. And the more balanced and you know how to balance yourself and your nervous system as well as your hormone system, better off you'll be no matter what you try, right? So let's describe, just as I said, hormones are chemical messengers in the body. So then let's sort of give you a context for what chakras are, because we can talk about it. It might feel a little voodoo or woo-woo, whatever you want to say, but it really is, in essence, vortexes of energy along the spine that align with different plexus, as well as glands that it corresponds with. And if you really listen to what I'm saying, everything makes sense, especially when you realize that there's this vortex of energy within the spine governing, balancing every gland in the body so that it can be orchestrating in a way where it establishes homeostasis and perfect balance. And that system, along with the endocrine and the chakra system, is then allows you, your body, to produce the perfect pharmacy specific to you. So it's an Eastern-based philosophy, chakras, and it's so much older than the Western philosophy. But I think if you really understand what I'm saying today, you'll start to kind of understand, oh my gosh, that's the application. And that's why we utilize here at Functional Yoga Medicine so much of yoga, because yoga is the union of you and yourself with the environment. And so that you can better manage the circumstances of your life so that you can be regulated and balanced and create harmony from within. Because if you can do that, then all is well. So let's dive a little bit into tying the connection between the symptoms and its respective hormones with its respective chakra, right? So at the base, we have the root chakra, which this root chakra is associated with the plexus and the gland that's called the adrenal gland, which is cortisol. And it makes sense because adrenals producing cortisol was designed to produce the fight or flight, run for your life, the fear. If you didn't have security, or you feel threatened in some way, or you had some trauma at the root, then you're going to have a surge in cortisol, and your body might be shifted into the fight or flight state without even knowing. And that's a conditioned, again, state of being, generating that kind of energy. When the cortisol surges, at some point your adrenals fatigues out. But remember, adrenals are also influenced by the third eye, the pituitary gland up here, master hormone. So there's a constant feedback mechanism root. So some of the symptoms you might experience here at the root and the cortisol surge will be weight gain, fatigue, bloatedness, foggy brain, and just constant dragging your feet kind of a symptom. So, and I want you to just really be aware of that, because chances are if you have a rise in cortisol, it feeds back to the pineal gland as a pituitary gland, as well as the pineal gland up here to communicate, and it disturbs when your cortisol rushes or surges up. It's not going to produce the melatonin up here. Your circadian rhythm, especially if you're not sleeping at night, you might want to consider it's not just a cortisol issue in and of itself. It has to communicate both with the adrenocorticotropic hormone over here, pituitary producing it, communicating to the adrenal gland, as well as the circadian rhythm up here at the pineal gland. So disturbing the melatonin production at night when you should be sleeping, you're surging up cortisol, so you're all of a sudden woken up in the middle of the night. And this is why when we're stressed to the max, we don't sleep well. It affects all the glands, all the hormones. It works together. That's what I want you to remember. Second is your sacral chakra, which is all to do with your sexual hormones. It's the progesterone, testosterone, as well as estrogen. And these are the sexual hormones that are intimate with the cortisol, as well as the thyroid and the pituitary, because that's the follicular stimulating hormone. And an imbalance here, if you're female, might be menstrual cramps, menstrual cycle, irregularities, mood swings, sleep disturbances, hot flashes. And if you're male, impotence or erectile dysfunction, sexual issues, right? So these are all things for you to consider that stress can affect your sexual hormones. And the third is your solar plexus. That's all to do with your gut. And really, when the gut is inflamed or the gut is dysregulated, that's everything to do with the pancreas and the insulin production. So a lot of people who have insulin overproduction, it's called insulin resistance, leading to diabetes. So if you've been told you have diabetes, you've got a lot of gut issues, because it's responsible for spleen, gallbladder, as well as liver enzymes as well, the solar plexus. But we're just isolating the insulin as the hormone, because that insulin as the hormone is the most inflammatory hormone, right? And when this surges, you might have, if you're female, PCOS. You might have weight gain there again. You might have cholesterol, high cholesterol, blood pressure issues, and the likes, leading up to different areas. And then the fourth gland is your thymus gland, all to do with the immune modulation. And when that's disturbed, how many of you suspect you have autoimmune condition? Well, that's what it's responsible for, is autoimmunity, thymus gland, because of the overproduction of immunological modulating chemicals that's responsible for in the heart chakra. So I want you guys to like see the connection now and how all the symptoms are intermeshed into one, that it's impossible to measure all the hormones. And again, it changes and fluctuates with your state of being, okay? And then the fifth chakra is your throat chakra. Throat chakra is all about your thyroid. Okay, thyroid issues reside here. And how many of you guys are on Synthroid or been told either you have hypothyroid, because that's so much more common than hyper. Hypothyroid symptoms really are similar to cortisol surge, right? It's the weight gain, it's the dry mouth, dry skin, it's the temperature, like intolerance to cold. It's all the things that you don't want. It does pose a physiological change in the body morphologically. So it's a concern for a lot of the females. Some of you might have Hashimoto's, like I said. If the thymus gland is overreactive, it becomes autoimmune. Well, the doctor just prescribes you Synthroid thinking that it's the lack thereof, but that doesn't fix it, because again, I'm going to talk about the negative feedback and direct impact of the pituitary, thyroid stimulating hormone, talks to the thyroid. So it's not enough to check the thyroid stimulating hormone. You really have to understand the metabolic processes, because going back to the insulin, that's all to do with the metabolic process. So if you're gaining like a lot of weight and you don't understand why, it might be because of the insulin resistance working with the sexual hormone dysregulation due to the cortisol surge, all working together. And so if your doctor is checking one hormone, giving you B vitamin complex for cortisol, and giving you some HRT for the sexual hormones, and giving you some, I don't know, glucophage for insulin overproduction, like you start to think about, oh my gosh, what's happening to me? Because all that toxic chemical is not helping you. It's telling, or it's further dysregulating your nervous system, and the hormonal imbalances are being perpetuated in a sense without knowing. Well, yeah, like if you have a supplementation of Synthroid for a little bit, you might feel better, but chances are you have to adjust those dosages so that you can keep feeling better, and that's a broken strategy in my opinion. Going up to the pituitary gland, it's the little peanut-sized like gland in the middle of your brain, and that is responsible for all things, even growth hormones on the posterior pituitary gland and oxytocin, as well as TSH, follicular stimulating hormone. It's communicating with all the glands to produce more of what it does. So it's the orchestration. So you never want to add different hormones in exogenously too quickly, because you want to give your body a chance to balance itself. And again, not gonna say this over and over, or I am going to say this over and over again. Yoga and meditation is something that you can learn as a powerful tool to regulate your internal state of being so that your nervous system and your hormones can balance. And at Functional Yoga Medicine, we always bring attention and intention with a context for the chakra and the endocrine system, as well as your nervous system, to understand so that we can better manage our symptoms in this way. Because if we add the intention with the attention, oh my goodness, magic happens and your body just sort of balances itself. And that's really what you want. You want to make your body whole. And as I said, last chakra is the crown chakra. Crown chakra is responsible for the pineal gland, and that is responsible for your sleep and wake cycle. And if that's disturbed due to the cortisol rush and then all the other hormones just flooding your system, then you're not going to be sleeping properly. And how many of you guys are struggling? It's not enough to, again, to take the melatonin. I understand the benefits of it, but like, you're missing the bigger picture. Do the inside job so that you can have more impactful exogenous impact, so that you know and work smartly to balance, with the ultimate goal of being balanced and minding the state of your being, affecting your energy, thereby affecting your endocrine, your hormone system, as well as your nervous system regulation. So there's an overlap with every hormone. It's communicating, they're communicating messengers, right? So I want you to understand that most doctors won't check all the hormones. They just check the biggest suspects, and they might tell you you look fine or give you a little antidepressant. Hopefully you feel good. But do you see the broken strategy in that? Is that you're really adding to the toxic pool. So your hormones act, and then different glands work both directly to influence the feedback loop, like the TSH, in communicating with your thyroid, as well as really to the follicular stimulating hormone down here to influence your sexual hormones if you're female, as well as there's an indirect impact, like insulin influences also your sex hormones, is why if you have insulin resistance, some of the women have what's called polycystic ovarian syndrome, okay? Remember, stress hormone, there's an impact to it. And that's why we emphasize the number one factor is at the root, which is the adrenal with the cortisol rush, because that's the what cascades into influencing all the other chakras and endocrine system and your nervous system, because your cortisol can suppress not only your immune system, it can alter your sleep-wake cycle at the pineal gland, as well as to affect all the other hormones in a negative way. So there is no testing for all these, how these hormones interact with each other, right? So we don't know that. We just kind of have tests for the results of what's your progesterone levels, or what's your estrogen level, what's your thyroid level. But thyroid too, it's the T3, T4, then there's the reverse T3, right? And so you need to understand the biochemical conversion factors, but when you dig to that science, you get further and further. And I feel, after years of doing it that way, it fragments the body rather than making you whole. I haven't found a better system than the functional yoga medicine system to complete you in a way where you can feel whole again, doing your part so you never need another medication again, or you never have to experience those symptoms again, because you have power at your fingertips to regulate your own system. And that, my friends, is what I'm after, to empower each and every one of you. This stuff really works. I'm not just saying it, scientifically backed and proven. So I want to invite you at this time to kind of sign up for our Hormone Harmony 7-day hormone reset, right? The link is below in this podcast episode, as well as if you wanted to go deeper, there is the gut healing transformation. It's our signature program, working through each chakra system, learning to balance them with different yoga and meditation and different tools that I've given you that has been backed and proven and experienced by me so that you can really leverage the knowledge that you have at your own pace. And that link too is down below if you wanted to go deeper. If this resonated with you, I would love to get your feedback. Please write and let us know how we can improve our services and provide value for you. We love connecting with you. So follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Dr. Connie Chung. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my podcast, Mind Your Health. Thank you for listening to the Mind Your Health podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, we would so much love it and appreciate it if you share it with someone who could benefit as well as to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else where podcasts are found. And leave us a review. We would be so grateful, and it helps us to reach more people just like you, so you can become more empowered to enjoy longevity and health. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Dr. Connie Chung. And of course, you can subscribe to this podcast for a new episode every single